right, so we're heading out. We got Bobby and Fred and Greg with us. Bobby's been a long time for Bob. We needed to check all of his gear, make sure it's good to go. But this is late January, coming off January 25th. Yesterday was a big day at Texas Parks and Wildlife headquarters. The TPNW voted to reduce the bag limits in Texas statewide. 3 fish, 15 to 20. 1 oversized trout, 30 or bigger per person per day until a tag can be implemented. It's going to go into effect sometime in March, springtime. The date isn't set yet, but a pretty monumental day in Texas fishing. We may not ever see anything like that in our lifetimes, the older guys here on the boat. I was at Texas Parks and Wildlife when it occurred. I testified along with about 17 or 18 other folks, maybe 20. And they were all over the board, all over the map, and eventually landed on that 30-inch mark. 15 to 20 was pretty solid going into the meeting. But that upper slot fish was ranged from 25 all the way to 36, believe it or not. And then they landed back into the 30-inch range. So that's where we ended up, Larry.
Yeah, and as you say, they were all over the place. It was the 15 to 20 inch, everybody was in agreement on that. It was just a matter of that upper slot, where that needs to be.
Yeah, and there was a heavy conversation on the tag incorporation. Is it going to be consistent with the redfish? And most of it dealt with the feed. Yeah. Many of you may not know, it's $3, believe it or not, for an additional redfish tag. And there was conversation on increasing that. You know, $3 just doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't a lot. But based on the number of people getting that extra redfish tag, it is a revenue for the state, and it shows its data because they know how many tagged redfish are purchased, and then they can kind of monitor how many are being brought in with the repurchase. So there's some importance to it.
And I'll say since it was announced that it went through, there's some misconceptions out there about how the decision was made, that just a handful of people made this decision based on just their gut. But it takes in, it's all TPNW survey data and the public feedback process over the last several months. People that showed up and voiced their opinions at the scoping meetings and or submitted it directly to TPNW with an email or through that online process.
Nobody independently made the decision, I can promise you that. It was the citizens, the angler community basically spoke, and Texas Parks and Wildlife responded and took action. That's what it boiled down to. Because here's the facts. Texas Parks and Wildlife's not going to make a decision and adjust legislation and laws based on 10% of what people want. Yeah. It's going to be a large majority, and that's exactly what happened in this Texas trout fishery movement that's happened since 2021 freeze, which spurred the whole darn thing. Yeah. So it was a pretty. I'm glad I was able to experience. I sit on the Coastal Resource Advisory Committee board along with some other folks. Dave Rousey's another guy down there, a colleague, and we're part of the process, sort of, and provide input to the board, and they report to TPNW and take some of our information and don't take some of it at the same time. But pretty interesting, and glad to have been part of the whole process, which has been going on for more than a few months.
And as of right now, when does that take effect?
Sometime in the spring.
Yeah, so they don't have the date nailed down yet.
The date is not nailed down. They're going to revisit the tag, how to incorporate that, what the fee's going to be, and that will likely be later in the year. Could even be September 1st to make it clean, because when you get your new license. Yeah. So what a day in Texas trout fishing history, right?
Yesterday. It'll be interesting to see how fast the dividends start getting paid off on that deal.
3 to 5 years, so we're going to have a pretty good trout fishery pending any environmental issues. Yeah. Because 3 fish and 15 to 20, not being able to retain anything from 20 to 30 will scientifically prove itself to be a very successful fishery.
Yeah, and you mentioned pending no freezes and things like that. We dodged a bullet just a little over a week ago. My neck of the woods up around Galveston, we were 21 degrees 2 days in a row, and You know, there was no substantial fish kills. There was some isolated stuff along the coast, but just as easy could have been, you know, a 4 or 5 day freeze, and we would have felt the effects of that.
There was a lot of fish that did get killed middle coast, according to what I've heard and seen, and from credible folks. And it could have happened here too, because we just dodged a bullet. We were literally hours away, likely, of another substantial fish kill, coast-wide. So we can't control that, but we can control our actions, and TPNW has helped us in that department. So, let's go see if we can catch some trout today.
I think that's a trout. Ah, it's a red. I saw spots on it. I'd really rather be throwing the top water, but I kind of got tired of dealing with the grass, so I figured I'd try a plastic. Come here. Something, it's not what we're looking for.
Some of the guys were throwing top waters, so I put we got some field testing the big K, formerly known as the Big Kelly. Like my third cast with it right on the edge of a pothole. This is a floater, but it barely sinks. A suspending plug, might be a red, but we'll see. But it's pretty cool to be able to throw the Big K and actually get some love on it. We're breaking this baby out from the past. It's a red, but he hit it good. Working these grass lines right up to the pothole. That's red too. Got it perfectly. Got him. Kind of a root beer colored Big K. It was cloudy when we got out here. I thought this would be a good color. Got some broken clouds starting to clear up a little bit now. Pretty neat though. He just came up and grabbed it pretty good. Thought it was a trout at first because he swirled out there. But it's a red. Beautiful red fish. Having to fish extremely slow. Key is to get in those potholes and keep that lure in the potholes. God, it's tough. Tough to do. But just a humongous trout. Got it. Let that trout do its thing. We're gonna let her do her thing. We're gonna let her do her thing. That fish hit like a piggy perch. Thought that little darter, I had to downsize. I went up downsizing a little. Fish has a lot of energy. She's hooked pretty good. Looks like we're about time. Slide her in. Got her. Just a nice Nice trout. But I saw a big pothole, and I thought, I have got to get this lure in that pothole. And I knew there wasn't any grass, right? So I could just, man, just inch it along. Inch it along. And man, what a light bite. But that, I had to downsize. This little guy is going to be called Orange Crush, I think. But this is just one of those nice trout. I'm gonna go ahead and tag it. Cause it's a tagger. Not that fat. It's kind of on the lighter side, but I can tell you it's a worthy trout. So downsizing, a lot of energy. 60, I think we're at 66 degree water temperature. But I had a feeling these fish were in those potholes, and once I found a pothole, a big one, I inched this thing along about 1 inch at a time, and it was just so slow. And it just picked it up. I mean, barely felt anything, and I just loaded up the rod. And she was on there, and she ate it. You know, she ate it good enough. So, good enough hook set anyway. So I'm gonna go tag this fish. So we're gonna tag it 12-2-0-0. I'm anxious to. So I got my numbers in from Heart Institute on how many I've tagged since I started with Dr. Greg and his team. This makes fish number 185 that I have tagged for Dr. Greg and his team. That includes, not that long really. Oh, we're not even gonna get to 25 on this bad boy, but I'm gonna tag it anyway. 24 and a half. Good fish nonetheless. This is my 185th fish to tag for my friends. Come here, buddy. Spin it around and get it on that dorsal. Lively fish. A little bit of sea lice on her because of that cold snap we have. We're coming out of it now. They're going to start getting active here in about an hour, maybe 2 hours. Gone. Good job. So we reset. We've been in one spot all morning, had a couple of nice fish. Fish were there, they're not eating. I made a move, wakes everywhere, so we know we're in the fish. Wind shifted now it's out of the north. We're in this floating grass. I'm having to throw singles. Just had one underneath it. Just wouldn't commit to it. We still got about maybe another hour or so before the major kicks in. We're in a full moon period, so we should have a midday bite, I hope. We know there's some big fish in here. We know they're here. We've seen them running with the wakes. Some are reds, some are big trout. And we got this clumpy grass stuff coming through here. I'm kind of in a crummy spot. The guys on the right of me and the left of me don't have as much grass, but I'll deal with it with single hooks. See if we can get them to start eating here in a minute. The water temperature is warmed up nicely, 68 degrees. Things should happen. So that's going to be our play. And then when that wind moves out of the east, we'll reset and come back through probably. Oh, that's a big trout. All right, here we are. This is like our third spot today. Actually, our second spot, but maybe our fourth stop for the day. We're kind of winding it down. As you can see, it's late in the afternoon. Absolutely no wind. The boat isn't moving, power poles are up. We had we struggled all day despite the fact that we did catch some nice fish and we lost some nice fish. We dealt with a lot of floating grass, clumps of grass, mostly dead. We resorted to single hooks. We had to go to single hooks on the top waters for sure. Additionally, we couldn't really throw plastics that well because we didn't have any wind to help carry your plastic through the air. You could do it, but you weren't getting long casts. The benefit to throwing a hard bait, long cast, but then we had to work through the grass. So when the grass wasn't that clumpy, we caught some really nice fish on like this little darter right here. It's only 3 inches long. It's got it's just a little smaller profile than a double D, so to speak. It actually sinks, but at a very, very slow rate, depending on what hooks you have on it. So we ended up with several, 4s and 5s. 5.75 was the biggest one. Came out of a pothole that we got on a junior Wiggalo. But at the end of the day, those fish never really turned on. During the major today, around 12:30, because we had a full moon last night, during the major today, the grass was at its worst. So that complicated things. And as soon as the wind picked up just a little bit, man, we started getting bites. Things were active, mullet started jumping. Wind died, everything just died, and it was such a struggle. But the point is this: the fish, you clearly had to put it in front of their face for a long period of time. Even on a topwater, you had to dance your topwater and not pull it towards you so fast to get those blow-ups. We had enormous blow-ups, non-committal. This little guy right here worked out beautifully because if you could see a big pothole and didn't have any floating grass bad enough to hinder your cast, you could put this in that pothole and inch it along the bottom of the pothole, and the fish were picking it up. That was the key to today. Additionally, to every now and again, we got away with doing it with some soft plastics. But that's how you have to work it in these high pressure days. That's where we're at. Coming off a full moon, but that's just the conditions we were given today. So we're going to wind it down. Tomorrow's a different day. We've got 25 to 30 miles an hour out of the north is what we're hearing. So we're still going to go. We're still going to go back to the same general area because there's just a lot of fish there, and I just cannot stand leaving fish to go look for fish. I'd rather try to get the fish that I know where they're located. I'd rather get them to I try to get them to eat or put something in front of them to eat. We had all good anglers today. It wasn't on us. We were just kind of on the struggle bus on getting those fish to eat. A lot of conditions weren't in our favor. So we're going to wind it down here in this last spot, see if we can pick up a couple of good ones. If that wind picks up, we might. Other than that, back at it tomorrow.